This is a reaction video. This is from Girl Gone London. 9 surprising British terms of endearment I never heard of before moving to the UK. Well, I don't know what she's talking about here, but I have heard some things that what they say in Britain, which are no-nos in the United States, which are basically swear words, which I don't believe she's talking about here. But let's take a look and see what this is. Please click like, share, and subscribe for her as well as for me. I would appreciate it. It's free to do right below me, right down there. Just click subscribe.
What do you call people as a term of endearment? In the US, we say things like buddy, pal, sweetheart, sugar, cupcake. This is definitely a food trend. Pumpkin and angel. But when
that's basically about it. I mean, I love. I call my girlfriend Love. That's what I call her.
When I first moved to the UK, I quickly learned that the Brits have their own affectionate phrases. Some of these were really easy to pick up and understand, and some of them were slightly confusing, particularly when someone kept calling me a duck. In this video,
a duck. That is strange. Well, look. For all my fans in UK, I don't mean to offend you by saying what you call people are strange. It's just something I'd never heard before, calling somebody a duck.
We're diving into the British terms of endearment that I'd never heard used that frequently before moving to the UK from America. Number 1 is the term lovely.
Now, I've heard lovely. Okay, and I think that's a good term.
I've talked about this word being more used in the UK than in the US to describe things, as in, wasn't that breakfast lovely? Americans would often say, wasn't that great, or wasn't that awesome? But also in the UK, lovely can be a term of endearment. I tend to hear it a lot from women, so someone might say, how are you doing, lovely? Or they might say, my lovely, or you might call your friends lovelies.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Not that you could care if I do have a problem with it. But, yeah, that makes perfect sense to say, my lovely.
The term comes from Old English, derived from luflic, meaning worthy of love. And I just feel as soon as you see a message from someone that says, hi lovely, with a bunch of X's acting as kisses, I know it's from a British friend and not one of my American friends who would probably say something like, hey friend, what's up? Next on my list is a very regional term of endearment, typically used in the Midlands, and that is to call someone duck.
Again, like I said, I don't understand why you call somebody a duck. Again, like I said, not trying to prejudge anybody here, but it's just something strange that I've never heard before.
Full phrase that's often used is, "I up me duck," which I know I don't have the right inflections at all, but that's the phrase. And I know this because I once had a very random connection to someone from Stoke-on-Trent, so I've actually been there, and he taught me this phrase. So duck is similar to dear or love, and some suggest it came from the Old English word duck, meaning leader or noble. It's just a sweet way to address someone in a casual manner.
Now, when I think of duck, I think of the bird, the duck. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then it is a duck. I didn't know it meant anything about endearment. But again, like I said, I'm here to learn. Okay, and duck. Okay.
Next on my list is the word love, different from lovely. Love is often used as
what I call my girlfriend, love.
As a term of endearment in the north of England, and not just for people that you're in love with. Actually, it's not really for those people at...
Yeah, I have heard on British movies, a love, and they didn't mean it in terms of like my love, but yeah, I think I know what you mean.
All. It's for strangers, colleagues, random people in the street. Everyone is love, and it's not exclusively, but in my mind, it's more associated with a male saying it to a female, though I've also heard females say it to females. I'm not sure I've ever heard a male say it to a male, but I may have heard a female say it to a male, but maybe it depends. You tell me, what are the rules when it comes?
Yeah, I need to know, because like I said, I call my girlfriend Love. That's what I call her. I don't call her by her name. I just say "Lay Love," and that's what I mean. But yeah,
comes to using this word. Sometimes people find this one can be used as condescending, so you could technically use it when you're being sarcastic, like "get out of my way, love," which again,
yeah, I've heard that. It's like "get out of my way, love," or something like that. Okay, yeah. Again, I've seen enough British movies where I've heard them say the term "love," not with meaning to a girlfriend or something like that, but just say "hey, love." Yeah, I've seen that.
Doesn't sound at all right or accurate in terms of inflection coming from my American accent, but you get the point. Next up is mate. Pretty widely.
Yeah, mate. Again, we call it friend in the United States, but my mate, which is I have heard that often in British slang.
Known around the world is a popular term for friend in the UK. Americans don't use the word mate. We say buddy or pal or friend. So yeah, we're very literal.
But yeah, mate. I understand. Your mate, your friend. I've heard mate before. That's something that I have heard on many occasions in British slang, and I get it.
What you mean and all of that, but mate is very popular in the UK and often used among males. Whether you say cheers mate or hey mate, want to get together on Friday, it's a way of signaling camaraderie. However, that being said, I've also heard it used sarcastically, like you can't park there mate, so you have to...
Yeah, I've heard that as well, but mate just basically means friend or but yeah, if you don't know the person's name, hey mate, you can't park there, I get it. I've heard mate before, and I understand it. I don't use it, but I understand it.
Listen for context clues, which is often the case in the UK and the communication style here. The term is believed to derive from an Old English word meaning one who eats at the same table. Next up is hen. This is something that
now hen is like a bird in the United States. That's what we call a hen. But I've never heard hen as a term of endearment.
According to my research, is much more common in Scotland, and it's similar to dear or sweetheart, and typically a feminine word. So I do need my Scottish viewers to chime in here. Let me know, do you use this word, and where do
Yeah, because that's actually, well, I don't want to say strange anymore, but it is, or weird, but it is different. I've never heard hen before. Even in Scottish movies, I've never heard somebody call somebody as a hen.
do you live? It's supposed to be endearing, and the use of the word hen as a nice word regarding females is also seen in the use of the phrase hen party, which in the US we call a bachelorette party, as hen in the US isn't a word used for endearment or affection or referring to anything besides the actual animal.
That is true. We use the animal's hen. That's the only thing I know it's for. Now, doll, I've heard before.
Female-oriented one is doll. We also call people doll in parts of the U.S. More in older generations, like, you're such a doll.
Yeah, that's something I have heard in the United States. You're a doll, which is a term of affection. And you do it. I've heard that not very often, but enough that I know that it's a term that's been used before in the United States. But I didn't know it was used in Britain as well.
Which is a good thing, but it's definitely more used in the UK, particularly in northern England, and it's used as a sort of nostalgic and affectionate term by older generations towards younger women or girls. It's pretty old-fashioned and traditional as far as things go. Next up is pet. It's another
that's something I have heard before. Now, some of these things I have heard before. I've heard doll, I've heard pet. Now, I haven't heard hen, I haven't heard duck, but I've heard doll and pet before.
Term I've heard typically in the northeast of England, and it's again similar to calling someone duck or love. It's just a nice, affectionate term, but I hadn't heard it before because we would only say the word pet in the U.S. referring to our actual household pets.
No, I've actually heard somebody call her somebody a pet before a girlfriend, to refer to a girlfriend or someone they love. It's not very often that I've heard it, but I have heard it in the United States on occasion.
We wouldn't call someone that, they would get very confused. Another is flower. Based on my
flower is something that I have heard before.
Research, this comes from Yorkshire, and it's like calling someone sweetheart. It's a tender term of endearment.
It's not something we use in the United States very often, but I have heard it in the United States before.
Though it's not something I've heard in London or the southeast of England. Again, many of these are regional, so it's very possible for someone watching this video in the UK to say, I've never heard someone calling someone that. And you likely haven't, but if you lived in a different region, you might.
But yeah, again, I understand what you're saying, but I have heard some of these terms before. It's not unusual. Some of these are words that I have heard before. Not granted every day, but I have heard them on occasion.
It's similar in all countries, including the US, where we have regional terms of endearment in the South, for instance, that are much different than in the North. We also tend to have associations with people that we love in our life who used to call us, or still do, some of these phrases. So for instance, my grandpa always used to call me sweetie, never my name, and everything he wrote to me was always addressed, "Hi, sweetie," and that brings back good memories for me. You probably have similar examples of terms of fondness or endearment that are special to you in that way. Now we have 2 more to go, the next one being very regional, mostly in the Birmingham area, and that is Bab. It's a shortened
Okay, I've never heard Bab, but I think it's short for baby.
version of babe or baby, and It can be used among close friends and family, sort of like calling someone honey, but I've also seen...
I've heard people call, a girl a babe before, okay, but not a Bab.
examples of it being said by someone who's basically a stranger, like a bus driver or shopkeepers at market. So it can also be a more placeholder way of saying it, similar to, again, what we've talked about, where the term love is not necessarily just reserved for people that you actually love. And the final word, poppet. I love this.
Now, I've heard poppet before, but I never understood what poppet is. Now, I haven't heard it very often, but I've very, very rare. I've heard it on occasion, poppet.
This one, I would never say it because it seems weird coming from my mouth, like I'm playing pretend British. I think a similar term I would use is I would often say munchkin to children, but poppet is often reserved for children or close.
Okay, I understand that, but again, I've never heard. I've heard the term poppet before, but I never understood what it meant before. But if it means children, okay, that makes sense.
Loved ones. It's like calling someone cutie or sweetie, and it comes from the Middle English word poppet, meaning small child or doll. Now, I have also heard adults call other adults poppet or poppets in a class setting, not like a class like a...
Again, like I said, I've never heard. I've heard of it, but I never understood it. But I've never heard anybody call anybody poppet. Again, I don't know where I've heard the term poppet before, but I have heard it before.
A professional university class, but as an example, like maybe you're taking a sewing class and maybe the teacher, who is like a warm and friendly person, might call you that despite there being no children in the room. So there you have it, some wonderful British terms of endearment that I had never heard before. Comment below and...
Okay, yeah, this is good. I mean, this is interesting. I never heard any of these, but well, some of them I heard before, but some I hadn't. But okay, I'm learning new things every day about Britain, a place I, visited a couple weeks ago. Had a great time there. Love to go back again. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Girl Gone London. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me as well. I would very much appreciate it. You have a good rest of your day, and thanks for watching.